Hi, everyone. I hope you've been doing well and that you're enjoying the sessions that we've been able to share with you so far. I've been really happy with the level of participation, and it seems that you're getting a chance to engage with some really valuable topics. So this week's session is focusing, as I think you already know, on William Ury's third side model. And that's a really, I think, important model for us to think about and to try to apply for a few reasons. One, because it's really, to me, it's about how everyday people can really participate in peace building. Until very recently, maybe the last 50 or 60 years, peace building was really thought to be the domain of professionals, diplomats, government representatives, all sorts of high-level figures, but it wasn't really thought of as something that regular people could participate in. Ury's model starts to give us some ideas for how it's possible for regular people to get involved in it. In a sense, I think it begins to demystify peace-building work. Starts to give you some clues to how everyday people in their professions and their personal lives and their associational lives can take steps to help make the communities and the societies we live in a bit more peaceful. So you're going to find a few things. First of all, this is the book that Ury wrote. It's called The Third Side. As you can see, it's not a terribly big book, but there's a lot of good ideas in it. On our Google site, I'm sure you've seen these 10 roles that are up there. It's a bit of a summary of what Ury wrote about in the book. He talks about these roles of the provider, the teacher, the bridge builder, the mediator, the arbitrator, the equalizer, the healer, the witness, the referee, and the peacekeeper. And there are brief definitions of each of those roles there. So the important thing, I think, is that if you look at these roles, you can begin to see places where all sorts of people can get involved in peace building, and that it's not really a profession. It's not an area that is extremely specialized. Rather, it requires the inputs, the contributions of a lot of different people with a lot of different skills and orientations. So, it begins to make sense, I think, if you reflect back on some of the things that we talked about in the last few sessions, starting with distinguishing between conflict and peace, and understanding the difference between conflict and violence, and seeing that different forms of violence, for example, as we talked about in the second session, structural violence, cultural violence, those can be carried out in ways that are very, very difficult to see sometimes. And so it's not always about a person holding a weapon or using some form of physical intimidation on somebody else. It often can be about oppression or inequality, and those types of things, of course, as you can imagine, and I'm sure you've seen in your lives, can be prevented. They can be resisted by everyday people. You don't need to be part of a military force. You don't need to be a high-level government official in order to push back against some of the forms of structural and cultural violence in particular that exist in our world today. The other thing that I think is interesting to think about is that Ury's model, I think, moves us a little bit away from these ideas of conflict resolution. I personally don't find conflict resolution to be a very satisfying way of thinking about peace building. What conflict resolution is often about is simply settling a dispute in the moment so that the problem doesn't intensify. And what peace building is about something much richer, much deeper, about building relationships and really strengthening the resilience of people to function well and constructively despite being involved in conflicts. So what this suggests is that conflicts may not be so much ended as they are changed or transformed. And Yuri, I think, through the third side, gives us some clues about how people might go about transforming the dynamics of conflict. Teachers, for example, or bridge builders, can do those kinds of things that really change relationships or change the way people think without getting caught up in two particular parties and their disagreement over a piece of property or a piece of land or some other let's say material possession that they feel that they both feel that they have a right to. Yuri suggests that in order to truly build peace, what we might be looking at more is how to change the relationship so that when conflicting ideas come up and when actual conflicts do emerge, that people have the skills, the tools, and the desire to really try to address them in ways that are nonviolent. Okay, well, I'm going to leave it there for today. Please respond to the questions on the discussion forum and try to do the small exercise that I've put on the page below. This has been a very interesting chance for me to get to talk to you a little bit. The next module is going to be led by my colleague Katarina Sira, and she's going to talk to you about some things related specifically about the roles of youth in peace building. So have a good week, everyone, and certainly Eid Mubarak to all of you.